All right, so we'll get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Washington Chapter Women in Health IT series. And today we're covering the career path of four very inspiring healthcare IT leaders. So we're so glad you were able to join. If you can see my screen, I'm sharing the slides. You can also, if you scroll kind of up to the top right corner of your screen, it should be able to go to full screen if it's too small for you. Okay. So I'm gonna go through our intro. We usually have a few slides on our chapter and what we do, but I kind of want to go through that real quickly because today I want to focus more on our panelists, and you guys don't want to hear me talk about our chapter in full detail. What I'll do is I'll post links to our chapter and where to find more information so you can learn more about us. We have a lot of information, especially around volunteering. So if that interests you, please contact us. We have a few new committees that you can join, and we're always open to have new folks come in. So our agenda today is, again, I kind of give you a little spiel on our chapter and what we do, but I have a few slides on that. We'll go over our panelist bios. We'll have Q&A, so kind of like a round robin session with our attendees, our panelists, and then you guys in the end um, can ask questions as well. All right. So HIMSS, if you're not familiar and it's your first time joining us, again, welcome. We are Healthcare Information and Management Systems Society, and basically our goal is really to provide you with resources and information and networking opportunities um, related to the topic of healthcare and IT. And so we're a nonprofit and global organization, and this is specifically our chapter specifically in Washington State. And our vision is to realize the full potential of every human everywhere. And our mission is to reform the global health ecosystem through the power of information and technology. So, just some examples of what we do. This is found on the HIMSS national website. On the left side, there are some initiatives that they're undergoing. So, information about accelerating health, there's information about nursing informatics. And then on the right, there's some specific solution and services that HIMSS itself delivers. So, again, if you're interested in learning more about that, um, please go ahead and go to the national site. And again, I'll post some of the links in our chat. Because we are a nonprofit, we do rely heavily on our sponsors, so we wanted to take the time to thank them. If you know of anyone or if your organization is interested in becoming a sponsor, please reach out to us and I'll give the details at the end of this presentation as well. All right, so now to the good stuff. I'd like to introduce you to our panelists. We have Rose Field. She's the VP of Informatics and Chief Medical Informatics Officer at Eisenhower Medical Center. Then we have Joy Sunsmeyer. She's the senior advisor, I should say retired, right? Retired now, senior informatics at HIMSS. We have Tabitha Lieberman. And if you joined us I think it was last week or was it 2 weeks ago? She presented on her career path. So we're happy to have her back again to share with you her experiences. She's the senior vice president of information services, clinical and revenue cycle applications at Providence St. Joseph Health. And then last but not least, we have Wendy Carroll. She's the Director of Clinical Optimization at Contigo Health and founder of Nurse Evolution. So again, thank you, welcome. We're so excited to have you all. And for our attendees, have your questions ready because I know that they're eager to share any information they have about how they evolved their career. So before we start, I had asked for our panelists to answer this question on the left. And the question was, if your career was the title of a movie, what would it be? So I'm presenting to you this slide now because what I'd like for you to do is kind of have a look at the titles. So here we have Wanderlust, The Incredible Journey, which will be a Walt Disney picture or movie, Pursuit of Happiness, and The Never Ending Journey. So keep these in the back of your minds. And as you listen to their bios and as they answer the questions, maybe you can try to guess who answered which movie title. and then we'll go over their actual answers later. Okay. So I'll go ahead and have you go through your bios just really quick, kind of get an overview of your careers, if that's okay, just so we can get a good understanding of um, where your specializations lie and how you got here. So maybe we'll start with Joyce, if that's okay, and then we'll kind of move down the list on the left there, wherever I see your video screens. So I'll turn
Sure.
mine.
All right. Thanks, Joanna. And it's great to be with you. Washington is a beautiful state, so I'm trying to envision the trees. I live in San Diego, so it's a little bit different from here. As Joanna mentioned, I am recently retired from HIMSS, so I'll start with the end first. I worked 42 years full time in nursing, and it's been quite an interesting experience and just a wonderful opportunity. So I started in 1979. I was hired as a staff nurse at a community hospital in Illinois. And I had my associate degree at that point. And then the hospital paid for my bachelor's and my master's. So that was a nice opportunity. I worked as a staff nurse for 6 years, and then I worked with the IT department as a liaison between nursing and IT, and really learned a lot there. Just grassroots, figuring it out. No one really knew what nursing informatics was at that point, but was involved with helping to develop the scope and standards of nursing informatics for the first time. And we all learned what the specialty was then, or the vision, I guess, for it. Then in the year 2000, I was recruited to HIMSS. They wanted to have someone with a subject matter background, and specifically a nurse and knowing clinical informatics. And through my tenure at the hospital and being the liaison with IT and helping to stand up the Midwest Alliance for Nursing Informatics, I brought to the table the kind of experience they wanted to be able to understand what our members did. So at HIMSS, I was first the director of professional services. I led initiatives like standards and interoperability, advocacy, and public policy. I launched the interoperability showcase that, I don't know if you've been to the HIMSS conference, but vendors come and are able to connect their systems because they're using standards in the same way. In the year 2005, I was promoted to Vice President of Informatics. And then I really expanded my network, and I was able to co-found the Alliance for Nursing Informatics, which still exists today, 25 organizations that work together and help to advance policy efforts with the like-mindedness of nurse informaticists. And then 2.5 years ago, I went part-time and became senior advisor at HIMSS. I still have the role of president of IHE USA. That is a standards profiling organization that HIMSS helped to stand up. But that is enabling some of the interoperability that we're able to see now across systems. So now I'm into retirement. I still am engaged in a number of activities, but my big HIMSS job is no longer active, but just went to Cabo last week and starting to enjoy life. So I can add that perspective to this dialogue. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. And I did see that someone was having issues with their speaker. So I just put the captioning on. Hopefully, it's not annoying, but that's why that popped up. So, Wendy, let's go to you next, please.
Sure. Hello, everyone. Thanks so much, Joanna, for the invitation to speak on this panel today with some amazing women and pioneers in informatics and health IT leadership. So, my name is Wendy. I'm the Director of Clinical Optimization at Contigo Health and Premier Inc. currently, where I do optimization and transformation between tech and our nurses in a third-party administration company. I'm also the founder of Nurse Evolution, which is an information hub I founded 5 years ago to help nurses better understand healthcare technology, advanced data analytics, and the connection that it has with innovation concepts to improve practice and also the experience of nurses' practice. Right now, I'm also the co-chair of the Nursing Knowledge Big Data Science Initiative Policy and Advocacy Work Group, and I'm a senior editor at the Online Journal of Nursing Informatics. I'll start at the beginning as well, like Joyce did. I've been a registered nurse in Washington State for over 25 years. I live in the Tacoma area. And after my critical care and quality improvement periods of my earlier career, which spanned about 10 years, I made an intentional move into informatics about 15 years ago. So I'm more formally trained in informatics. I first worked to meet the requirements to get my ANCC informatics certification. And then I went on to get my Master's of Science in Nursing with a concentration in nursing informatics. And then really over the last decade, my informatics roles have spanned in many areas, including a vendor setting, more traditional informatics work in a hospital with an EHR implementation. I've worked in data analytics and reporting and informatics leadership at 2 startups with a short time in consulting and contracting roles. And I did found Nurse Evolution 5 years ago. I told you a little bit about that. And since then, I have been doing more committee work nationally and become more involved with HIMSS Washington.
You. Okay. Next up, Tabitha, please.
Well, thank you. And again, thank you for having me. I do enjoy being able to share and hopefully make anybody else's journey just a little less scary if they're on one. So I often will call myself an accidental IT person. I didn't think I was going into a career in healthcare or IT, but that is where I am and that is what I love. So just focusing on that area, I've been in healthcare for over 30 years, maybe even close to 35 now. And somewhere around 28 years ago, I raised my hand to help with a system consolidation project, even Mars. There was a time. And that led me down the path that I am on now. I have been blessed to be part of some incredible healthcare organizations in the Pacific Northwest, including where I am today, Providence, as well as the University of Washington and the Everett Clinic, and spent the majority of my time in those organizations, growing my career in the IT and EMR path. Today, I'm the Senior Vice President of Clinical and Revenue Cycle Applications at Providence, as you saw. A little later in the presentation, I will share some new news that I announced to the organization. My path really has been one of constant learning. My roles and my titles have changed many times throughout the years, and those 3 organizations I mentioned, but all in growing excellent teams and being able to deliver top-notch technologies to caregivers and helping to take care of our patients. So it's been a pretty amazing career in the healthcare IT space, none of which I expected. I will turn it over to Rose.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Joanna, thank you for the invite. I am an ex-Washington State resident that accidentally found my way to the Coachella Valley. So I'm coming to you from the Palm Springs area where Coachella has been happening since last weekend. So, and no, I do not participate in those activities. But it's been an interesting ride for me as well. By training, I actually trained in the Philippines. I was a family physician before. And then after the first 10 years of practicing with my mom, owning my own retail pharmacy, owning our lab, practicing in the clinic, and also teaching in med school, legal medicine and medical jurisprudence. I found myself migrating here to the US in search of a diagnosis for my second son, who we couldn't diagnose and we thought had ADD. I spent a month at the University of Washington, and within the first week, we found he had Asperger's syndrome. So, very interesting personal journey of why I'm here. I've never really thought that I was going to migrate to a different country because I was happy where I was at. But life throws you curveballs. So I found myself here. I found myself in a very interesting fork in the road where should I do residency again, apply for family physician um, fellowship programs as well. But then it's just so fortuitous that one of my friends, who was then the medical director of sports medicine at Virginia Mason, actually said, "Hey, there's this new field called medical informatics. Are you good with computers?" I'm like, well, I think I am, but let's see. So I'm quite blessed that I have a brother who's an AI specialist. That was one of the first ones in my country. So he guided me to an IT program where it was a post-grad program, very project driven. And during the time that I joined, where I think Tabitha and Joyce were pioneering already in the early 2000s, is when I actually shifted. And I took this interesting program where the requirement was you have to have a college degree, a year of experience in that particular industry. I had 10 years. And you had to pass the IBM test for programmers. And so coming into the school, I didn't know what to expect. I took the test. Within 15 minutes, that administrator comes out and says, we have a problem. And I said, what is your problem? Well, your resume says you're a physician, but you test like an engineer. So that's how I started my journey in healthcare IT. Before I graduated in the program, IDX, that was eventually bought by GE Healthcare, found me and said, no, you're not going anywhere. You're coming with us. And then when I got to IDX, they didn't know how to place me because I was a physician and they didn't have a physician team. They have an orders team, a ClinDoc team, pharmacy team. And so I asked them, what's your most difficult team to join? And they said pharmacy, because medications is always an interesting um, um, application to maintain, pharmacy to maintain. So it was during the time that we actually had barcode medication administration just recently launched, but most programs didn't even have a barcode reader. So I remember um, I'll never forget the experience of putting in a spreadsheet all of the NDC numbers and running actually code, the macros to convert them into barcodes so that we can actually print labels and scan those and put them into the robot and all that. So I actually started my healthcare IT career as a pharmacy analyst. I eventually graduated up. I didn't mind dropping the MD after my name because I always believe that you were put in a situation for a better reason, and all you need to do is focus on what the better reason is. So started as a pharmacy analyst, became a senior consultant, eventually a CPOE consultant. CPOE, 2002, 2003. My first client ever was Stanford. I was 2 months into the program when they sent me there. I'll never forget the incident where the pharmacy director was actually trying to run a query to display all the entries of the allergy table. And I looked at his query and I said, you're missing a zero before your table number 828. And he's like, no, that's not simple enough. I said, it is. If you look at the pick X4, then you need 4 integers instead of 3. He put a zero and voila, everything showed up. So that was the first time that I realized I was in the right place. So worked up CPOE, became a consultant, worked for large consulting firms. During that time, because there was only a handful of us, and I know we are not female focused panel here. Being female, being a migrant, being in a very interesting spot, they didn't know where to place me usually, right? So eventually, after consulting, after going back to GE and actually being the first physician consultant for our enterprise consulting services back then in 2005, we then migrated into new platform. And during that time, a lot of EMRs were shifting focus. And the next turning point I had was in 2008 when one of my ex-GE team members actually asked me if I wanted to give the CMIO role a try, because they had one client who went through 3 physician informaticists and could not handle the role. I remember specifically telling her, I really don't know that EMR. I only know GE. I know a little bit of Cerner, Meditech, but I didn't know McKesson. And she said, well, an EMR is an EMR. You should be able to figure it out, right? What I did not understand, and I'll never forget my mom saying, you're a jack of all trades and a master of none, because I did pharmacy, lab, all that stuff. I found my place in informatics. That's why I'm here. Because when I became CMIO, everything then merged together. My knowledge of pharmacy, my love for teaching. I became a physician trainer and, on top of being CMIO. And then I worked for that client there for McKesson, then worked for McKesson themselves as a consulting physician, CMIO. And then I also mentored, my last stint in Washington State was Peace Health. And then out of the blue, my predecessor from Eisenhower Medical Center called me 2 days before he resigned and said, hey, I need you here for a couple of months so that we are trying to find the next CMIO. 9 years later, I'm still here. So that's my journey. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much. So, audience members, attendees, if you can send a reaction on how you're feeling so far. I'll put mine in. Excited to hear all that. All right. So while I'll stop presenting and I'll just I'll go into the questions. That way you can see their faces. I'll just stop this for a second. So, what I was envisioning is this next piece is I was just going to kind of go through questions and have them answer. And again, keep in mind what some of the titles of the movies were. I think we had Wonderlust, Incredible Journey, The Never Ending Journey, and then Pursuit of Happiness, right? Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and round robin. I'll start asking. And you guys, if you have questions, just start putting them in the chat and we'll get to them at the end. So the first question was, what is your decision-making process when it came to your career or when it comes to your career? And we'll just kind of go, whoever wants to go first can go, and then you can pick the next person, I guess. Anybody? Nobody?
I can go. I'll go first. Sure, I'll go
Yay.
first.
And I'll turn
Well,
captioning off here. There.
in my the start of my career, when I was deciding if I was going to be a nurse or not, I loved technology. This was back in high school and actually as a child, and then didn't know if I loved technology and I also wanted to be a nurse. So I wasn't sure which one of them I was going to do. And way back when, I really started the linear, organized way of making decisions, almost using a decision tree in a way, but a very tactical approach that's pretty simple. I'm very visual and I am a writer. So my process has been to actually write down my wishes for a new role when I was going to pursue one and what I envisioned it to be during that specific piece of the decision-making process in my career transitions. Through the years when seeking new positions, I started using the plus delta paper exercise, literally putting 2 columns on a piece of paper, a plus and a minus, writing down keywords that I was looking for, and not areas of expertise or interest overall, kind of at a high level, not job by job. So for instance, when I wanted to go into informatics, I wanted to stay with nursing and I wanted to stay with informatics. Right now, if I was, job searching, I would have said a plus would be leadership and transformation strategy with the innovation focus. And I'm also looking to get more into digital health and product development. So I would also put those down too. But over the years, this has really worked well for me. It's really helped me to stay focused on the big picture and the longer journey, and knowing what I'll enjoy, what I'm going to, enjoy doing every day, the places I want to go, travel to, learn, and then of course places to stay too. But I've also in decision making taken the leap to really stretch and reach for roles I had no experience in that really interested me. And when I went into those positions, I really feel like I made a conscious decision to really be teachable and coachable. And I think those were two really important traits I used in my journey and through my career pivots. And those are things that helped me really with my decision making processes.
Who wants to go next?
I'll take that. So I do think that changes a bit as you go along in your career. Early in your career, it's kind of like, can I get this? Will they take me? Is it something I'm interested in? But you maybe don't spend as much time discerning. As I've grown in my career, I've really found kind of three key things: the people, the mission. Do I want to work with these people? Do I think I'm a good fit? Is it feel like a team to me? The mission, can I get behind this? No amount of paycheck is going to make up for mission. It's so important. And we're so lucky in healthcare. There's, what we do is very meaningful. But for me, I have to believe in what I'm doing. And then learning opportunities. Am I going to learn from this? So what it's not anymore for me is title. Now, money is always a component in looking for a job and being smart, but sometimes even there, a step back get you a step forward. On the kind of practical, plus delta, I'm a spreadsheet person, so I always put everything in a spreadsheet, even if it doesn't make sense. And then on the complete opposite side, when I'm going through a really, should I, shouldn't I, what's the right step for me? I often go either to find water where I can just stare out into nothing, not the spreadsheet, or big trees, amazing forests. And part of that helps me put things in perspective. The ocean has been here long before I will be here, long after I'm here. So whatever internal thing I'm thinking of, it always helps me kind of put it in perspective. But of all the things in that decision-making process, it really is, how do you keep growing as a person? Not necessarily as a career, but as a person. I would say that's kind of the heart of how I go through that discernment. And it is not easy, no matter what we tell you here today, and you hopefully have a few little things that are useful. I mean, it's a hard process to decide if you've got multiple options, where to go, to leave, to go somewhere new, is really something that I think people should and do spend a lot of time with. And hopefully you're centered and trust yourself enough to make a choice that works best for you.
That's great.
So
Thank you. Joyce?
Yeah, I can go next. So interesting to hear both of you in how intentional you are about your approach to the workplace and your career. I have to say, my experience has been different, maybe because I got started so early on in informatics, but I've only been really at 2 organizations over 42 years. So that kind of changed my decision-making process, I guess. But I would say it's more, I've been asked to do things and I've had to consider, is that something I'm able to do? And then take that leap and go forward and figure it out from there. So really trying to feel the confidence in myself. And typically when I'd be asked to do the next thing, I'd counsel with my husband. I go, oh boy, advocacy, they're asking me to do advocacy. I don't even know what that is. And Randy said, well, you're pretty good at BS, so I think you're going to be fine on that. So those are just some of the casual conversations. But I think to me, nursing provides such an amazing foundation. We learn a great skill set when we become nurses, project management and understanding, the healthcare environment, et cetera. So building upon that was a bonus for sure. And then just not being afraid of the next thing. There's within informatics, there's always new technologies and new initiatives and new activities that you have the opportunity to be a part of. So I would say take the leap and don't be afraid of those new things because probably you'll be able to do it better than many people. And so that way you can build a career that feels good, builds on your success, and gives you something to look back on at the point of life that I'm at.
Okay. Interestingly enough, when I was writing my notes down about this, I find myself changing my strategy on how I make decisions based on the phase that I am in my life, right? When we were younger, especially coming from a different country, we were raised to kind of respect your elders really seriously. And whatever your parents said is how you actually make your decision, right? You don't want to disappoint your parents, which we actually see in our any younger generation. So when I was younger, it was more about, okay, my parents are helping me lead me into a certain direction, and so being the good girl that I was, following my mom, my dad's expectation, going to med school, and I was mentored by the best, by my mom. So I can't complain about that. As I grew older, in the phase of your life where you get married, you have kids. I don't know about my fellow panelists, but I manage a house of 6 boys. They're all grown, thank God. But between my husband and myself, his, mine, and ours children, we had 6 boys. And so in the process of making decisions throughout my career, it really was about family first before anything else. Because I love what Tabitha said, money will follow, but it's not usually money that drives us to where we go next. Because if you have a lot of money, but you're not really thriving in the environment that you are at, then what's the use of the money, right? So as you grow older, as I grew older, I think, it's really about leaning towards what the universe really is telling you to do. I think that's a quote I heard from Oprah where, you lean into life, you lean into what the universe really is showing you. And you learn by your past mistakes, but what's most important is not how you fall, but how you get up. And I'll never forget, I always hear my father's voice saying, face the music, face the music. So when I do my Ben Franklin, which is what Wendy said, the plus, the minus, the deltas, and all that, and Joyce says, oh, yeah, you know how to sell. So, hey, why not, right? I think with me, the one thing that I do tell myself a lot, especially when I went to healthcare IT, is you were trained as a physician. You can diagnose an illness without seeing that bug. In healthcare IT, you actually see the bug on the screen. So you can actually do debugging and troubleshoot things, right? So it's really a matter of just what's really important in that phase of life for you. And as I said, as I grew older, one of the other things that I actually ask myself is, if I'm going to take the next step, what can I do to leave that legacy behind?
Thank you. So, some common things that I'm hearing and that I heard actually were um, consider the phase, when you're making decision process about your career, consider the phase of life that you're in, um, what it is that will make you happy, what kind of team do you want to work in, what kind of things will challenge you and help you grow, and be practical, like write it out, make your pluses and deltas, write your wish list, kind of your letter to the universe per se, and be brave, stretch yourself, um, accepted challenges, and had confidence in yourself. So that's great. Thank you. Okay. So our next question is, what's the most important risk you took and why? And this could have been a good risk or a bad risk.
I'll start. Okay. My well, the biggest risk I took is leaving my country and coming here and starting from scratch. Um, when I was younger, I didn't share this information, but as I grew older, I find that, you know what, you've gone through life, so it's important to share with the younger generation that when you were in a rut, when I started here, no one knew who I was. You know, I stayed in a one bedroom apartment. I literally, I even had an incident where there was this cat with all of these fleas that was infesting me. I went home to the Philippines and my mom looked at me and go, "What happened to you?" But um, short of just sharing all the details of what I had to go through to actually start from the bottom again, even though I've already practiced for 10 years, made quite a bit of money, earning quite a bit of money, from my businesses, not only from my practice as a family physician, and moving to this country and humbling myself again, really understanding that you can do anything if you put your heart to it. So just starting from ground zero, working my way up, and proving that yes, I am a force to deal with because I believe in myself first, and I won't let anybody tell me that I can't do anything.
Well, I think that's a pretty amazing story. It puts a lot of risks in perspective. So I'll share kind of. I'm going to go all the way back and then to actually this week. Don't worry, not I won't go all the risks in between, but just on a personal story, I went out on my own very young. Right, 5 days before I turned 16, I had $100. Um, and without going into too much detail, I didn't even know my social security number and how to fill out a job application. And 5 days later, I got a job at a hamburger joint. And 2 months or 3 months later, I was supervising in that hamburger joint. And I found an apartment as a 16-year-old. I don't know that that would be possible today. They don't really allow 16-year-olds to sign contracts. And why I say that is sometimes when I'm thinking about a risk, that puts it in perspective for me again. Um, I hope never to do that again, and then be starting out in that kind of I don't know how to do anything, but I made it. I went to school. I'm here today, and is, that experience helps me put certain risks in perspective. Throughout my career, the biggest kind of risk I would say I've taken is to speak up, to uh, be willing to be the different opinion in the room, and sometimes that can be exhausting, and sometimes that can be very powerful. But it can feel risky, especially as a woman, especially as I was younger or unproven. And I would recommend that to everyone is to speak up, not to be just to be contrarian, but to be authentic and share your voice. Which brings me to today. This week, I did announce to my team and organization that I will be moving to a new role that is very risky, very different. I have an amazing team. It's just, they're incredible. But in my final phase in my career, I've decided to do something very different and build something that hopefully will be successful, but without the amazing support of Providence, which is an incredible organization, and this team that has helped us succeed so far. So I can't tell you if that risk will be successful yet, like the others along the way in my career, but I can hope so. And went through that evaluation process. So we'll check in a few years to see if that last one was worth the risk.
All right, I'll go next. That's great. I'd say kind of the most risk-wise, the most impactful and significant risk that I feel like that I took in my career and in the specialty of informatics is leaving a very stable nursing informatics quality position at a health system, Franciscan, in Tacoma, to where I had been for over 5 years, to take a chance at doing data analytics for population health at a startup in downtown Seattle, which meant that I had to leave the comfort of my town, the comfort of my home, travel to work every day. I was tipped off for the position when somebody says, "Oh, you're an informaticist? We need an informaticist." And it wasn't necessarily clinical, traditional informatics. It was actually more health and data and analytics related informatics. And I thought, you know what? I want to start that. I want to try to do that. It sounds really fun, and it was. And I think the reason why it was really a big risk for me is because it pivoted where I was in my career and showed me a different side of informatics. And it also put me in a very a situation where an environment that's a startup environment, it's potentially very precarious, and doing something new and being in an environment of ambiguity where you have to wear a lot of hats, and there are, you can at least unleash your creativity finally, and you can see change very quickly. All of those things. And I realized that that is the situation. That's the kind of working environment that I love being in. And so, really that specific risk changed the way not only that I saw informatics and broadened my kind of thoughts on informatics and what I could do in health IT, but then also helped me to find the kind of setting that I really enjoyed working in. That's more innovative and fast paced, and it fits a lot with my personality. So I'm in a position in a small company that's growing rapidly right now, and very happy there right now. So I was able to kind of stay on course with that.
Well, I would say my biggest risk was accepting the job at HIMSS. I mentioned that I was recruited, so it was something that I, didn't wasn't seeking at the time, and pretty intimidating for sure. Coming from a community hospital and a nursing environment, which is very supportive, and then going to an organization, it was downtown Chicago. I would have to take the train. There were activities and programs that I needed to start and didn't really necessarily have a deep understanding of that. But the excitement of thinking that I could take on a role and really evolve it and make it something that I could influence was one thing that really tipped me into accepting the position. And that first year was pretty challenging, pretty tough, and I did to cry on my husband's shoulders many times, but I made it. But I also want to share a little risk that I took when I was at the organization. The CEO would reach down the organization at HIMSS and ask us to do things, and very frequently. And I never minded that. But what bothered me was he really didn't say thank you. Never really said thank you. So I talked to my immediate boss about that, and I said, it really bothers me. She said, well, why don't you say something to him? She said, I think it would mean a lot coming from you. So I did. I didn't do it in face to face, but I did send an email, and I just explained, happy to help. Glad you liked it, but it would really be nice to get your feedback and hear a thank you from that. So after that time, he added thank you to his signature on his email. So it made it easier for himself. But at least we did always then get a thank you when we were asked to do things for our CEO. Small risk, but big reward.
Right. Thank you so much. So, really, what I heard was despite the type of risk, whether it be good or bad, it's always important to kind of be brave, to share your voice, speak up, because on the other side of that, you learn more about yourself and it kind of gives you more perspective on different opportunities that kind of lay ahead of you, allows you to grow. All right. So I'll do two more questions and then we'll go on to our attendees to see if they have any questions. Um, what are two tips or advice that you have carried with you throughout the years that you've implemented?
I can start. Um, so every piece of advice, I have to offer really comes from just doing things maybe wrong along the way, um, or just learning, which I hope everybody is always willing to do. I know people here, fail fast and all of that along the way, but it's scary. Nobody ever wants to do that. Um, I would say one is be willing to do what makes you uncomfortable. So if you shy away from things because you're afraid, well, I don't really know if I know that, maybe I'll be judged, maybe I'll fail, you won't break through to that next thing. So it can be small. It could be speaking in front of a group that just so they get to know you if that's your area you're uncomfortable. It could be taking on something that you don't feel you have all the knowledge for, and then realize that you have people around you that will always be willing to help. So that's one. I think my other is, and this is easy to say as you age, but this too shall pass. I remember spending this enormous amount of anxiety and thought on some problem that I thought was going to be the end of the world. And I still think you take problems seriously. I mean, that's part of what helps you be a leader. But that amount of energy in it won't make it any better. These things will change. Things will get better. Problems you thought were huge will later look small. So just always remember, take a deep breath. This will pass. Reach out for help because people do want to help as long as you remember that you should ask for it. And whatever you're going through, it will probably make you better and stronger for the next.
Who's next?
Hello. I think two tips I learned along my career early on, but then really took off kind of later, more recently in my career. Really have to do with the uncomfortable act of really risk taking and putting yourself out there. As Tabitha was talking about. But the two things that I really feel have made a difference in my life and can make a difference in when you're out looking for a transitional career and other things is to don't be afraid to ask for what you want, because you're really going to be surprised how many yeses you'll get, and the things that you really are looking for and wish for. It might not be the answer you expect to hear, but I think you'll be very surprised, whether it's you're asking for help, as Tabitha said, which we need to do, and an uncharted opportunity for mentorship, wanting to meet somebody new in your community. The informatics community nationally and globally is really a place where you can hear a lot of yeses, and you'll also get them, I feel like, in the workplace. And the pivot to that, and tip two that I've taken with me is don't be afraid to say yes if there's an opportunity offered to you to do something new, to advance, to dip your toes into leadership, to dip your toes in a different area, as I did with informatics, build within your niche. One thing that I've done is I've become, more of a speaker, put myself out there, have, pioneering informatics mentors. And that was all because, I reached out to them, and asked for that. And I've been very surprised in the last few years how much my kind of the thought leadership I've done has grown, and founding, my information hub, having to reach out to people to partner with me, kind of in a business sense and things like that. It's been really surprising to me how much cooperation and support I've actually received because I've asked for it and because I've said yes to it as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I would love to build on what Wendy just said. The idea of creating and building your own network is really critical because that can be your, your people and your comfort factor. It's fun to be together. You also can learn from each other. And it's a lot easier to do today with LinkedIn and the tools that we have in social media than it was years back. We used to have to go physically to a conference and then, make our network from that and build with email off of that. But that's key. And then Wendy also mentioned mentor. I think that's really an important thing to consider as well. Seek a mentor that can give you sound advice along the way and can guide you as well. And reach out to someone and ask for that. And you'll be surprised. People will be positively responding to that.
Great points, Joyce. I actually recently had done was I completed a CIO boot camp. Tabitha, you went through that, right? One of the mentors there that I actually met, his name is Ivo Nelson, and he actually wrote a book called Love-Based Culture. Again, coming from the Philippines, I find myself staying true to myself despite all of the challenges. And I was trying to find the name of how I was running my team. And then I got in touch with him. I learned about his book and we discussed it during the boot camp. And basically, what he really taught was we have to lead everything from love, not for love. Because when we actually do it with love, anything that we do usually turns into a positive thing when we do it from the intent of doing it from love, not for love. Because usually a lot of us find ourselves disappointed if we want to be reciprocated for something instead of just doing it because we enjoy doing it, right? So, that's one of the greatest things I've learned, that now I have a name for it because now I'm operating on a love-based culture. So that anytime we get calls from physicians and, my three colleagues here, being in the nursing industry, it's a female dominated world, but being in the physician industry, it's a male dominated world. And so it's, I always share with my team members and anyone that I mentor that, those little drips of water, eventually that rock breaks. So doing it from love and not for love really is a great path to follow. The other thing that I think I love teaching my team is that we have to be 100% referenceable. So it is okay to actually say, I feel uncomfortable doing that and I need help from you because I still am not in that stage where I'm an expert on that particular skill. And as a leader, our role is we are not in charge, but we are responsible for who we are in charge of. So we should not be afraid to be accountable for the things that go wrong. And you know what? When things go right, don't take credit for it. Give the credit to everyone who actually made it happen. So it's just humbling to see that how we've grown with digitalization of healthcare and all these technologies and all of these modalities that we can use today to mentor our next generation. It's humbling to see that we can actually, from our experiences, share with all of you the pearls of life that we actually can leave behind. So exciting times.
Yes, it is. There was mention about growing your network, finding your group of like-minded individuals. Do any of you have tips on how to create that specific network? Joyce kind of mentioned find a mentor, but for people who like actual steps on how to do things, do y'all have tips on how to create your own network and start building it?
Yeah, I would say number one is volunteer. Get involved with activities. Wendy mentioned the Big Data Science Initiative, and that's an example of a place where you can go and really build a network quickly, and it becomes a supportive network. And I know that there are a lot of other programs and projects and conferences out there where people can do a similar thing. I think, I'm still biased towards the face-to-face opportunities. I know we've had a gap in that, so it's created challenges. But there's nothing like that, sitting down and talking over a glass of wine, or following up after a conference, and reaching out to that person again. So that would be my advice to volunteer.
I think another thing is just to look for things that like the conferences, don't just go to a conference. Find something that you're really interested in, because I can speak in front of 1,000 people and not care at all. If you put me in a cocktail party with it, I'm a little stilted. I don't really know what to say. So I think if you go to things that you have a passion about, you will find people who have those shared passions, and that really helps. Doesn't make it necessarily feel like a network. It feels like a great group of like-minded people that you want to reach out to.
That's great. I think for me, myself, LinkedIn has been a very powerful tool. I wouldn't say I'm the most outgoing person, and networking doesn't come natural to me. So LinkedIn has been really helpful in terms of I can just hide behind my computer and then reach out to people and ask them, hey, I really love the background, your career. I'd really love to talk to you and learn more about it. And everyone so far that I reached out to have been, really excited and eager to share their story. So I encourage you, if you don't like in-face person networking events, LinkedIn is a great tool. Do Rose or Wendy have any other suggestions?
I was going to say, Joanna, exactly. I was going to say LinkedIn. It's amazing how many kind of cold calls I've made on
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn, and people have made to me. For instance, a couple of weeks ago, I put up a post. Somebody commented on it. I liked the comment. I liked her brand headline. Turns out she was a chief nursing information officer in Australia, and
Oh
we
God.
just decided that we would have a chat. So a couple days later, we scheduled something and made a new friend in Australia. Very interesting. So it's amazing. I've grown my network. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think I actually reached out to you too through LinkedIn or through your
And I
website.
think what I also want to leave this team with is that don't be afraid to reach out to C-suite members as well,
Hmm.
because there's a lot of I know when I can speak for myself when I was in the lower ranks, so to speak, you kind of feel iffy to reach out to someone. Oh, he's a CIO, or oh, she's a CNIO or CMIO. But as leaders in the stages of our lives right now, we love mentoring the next generation because, to Joyce's point, we are looking towards retirement. So we need to pass that baton to the next generation, to people who love being mentored and want to learn, because this is our perfect opportunity. So don't be afraid to reach out to us. One of the things that I've experienced that's very humbling, and I was just profoundly impressed, was when I joined Chime for the first time and I went to their on-site, Chime event last fall in San Diego, where Joyce is. And it is so humbling to see CIOs that would come up to you, talk to you, and not think, I don't care what your rank is. We just want to collaborate. So I encourage everybody to reach out. You'll be really surprised as to who responds.
Perfect. Okay, so now we'll get to our attendees' questions. Again, if you have any, please post them. I see there's one that came in, Kristen. So her question is, throughout your careers, is there a time or an experience that you can share about developing tact with your peers and or leadership? That's a good question.
I'm happy to
Interesting
give.
about tact, because I am a cat herder. I always say that, managing physician teams is always managing big cats. I'll never forget when I joined the Physician IT Advisory Council for the first time here, our chief of staff was actually a neurosurgeon and was very notorious for just being bleep, you know, a bleep. So I couldn't say the word. But I'll never forget him asking me, "So, what will you do with difficult physicians like me?" I said, "What about you?" "Well, this EMR thing, there's always something wrong. And, I'm frustrated as a neurosurgeon. I just want to take care of my patients. I don't want to do admin work and all that good stuff that you guys sell us, being a part of the EMR team." Well, I told him, I said, usually with me, how I approach things is you tell me what's wrong. We'll try and work with our team to resolve it. If it still goes wrong and the others are already saying that it's fixed, maybe there's something that you're doing that is the cause of your problem. So usually what I do is I challenge you to join my team, to be part of the solution, not to be part of the problem. But if you don't want to be part of the solution, you just need to get out of my way and we'll eventually figure it out. So when I said that, he goes, "Oh, I really like you. You need to stay here. You need to go and, leave Washington State and come to California." Mm, Looking back now, really, California? But um, that's one way I usually use humor to actually say it. Um, Coming, I think, from my own country, we frown on sarcasm. And so I find that here in the US, everyone kind of feels comfortable about making sarcastic remarks, even that the intention is not to be sarcastic, but we also forget that a lot of people around us are migrants from different countries that can't relate to how we communicate. So just kind of taking a few steps back and asking ourselves, okay, what's the most appropriate things to say? And if you can't say something nice, don't say it, I guess is where I'm gonna leave it at.
Yeah, good points. Um, I would say um, there were many times early in my career, or maybe even mid in my career, or maybe even now, I don't know, where I did not use tact. And I think I used to think, well, as long as I'm producing the results, as long as I'm right, I just need to say what's factual. And a few things I've learned. First off, what am I actually trying to accomplish? So if I have a goal of trying to, get a new process in place, get something approved, get people on board, I have to meet them where they are. I can still do that and be authentic to myself and bring the facts in, but I need to understand. I mean, some docs you work with, they're great. They just want it straight. Just give it to me. Other people really need you to understand where they're coming from in order to move them along the way. So I quit thinking about it in how I want to tell the story into what am I trying to achieve and who am I working with, and be able to still be authentic, but meet them where they are. It got me a lot further.
I'd
Joyce or
say,
Winnie?
oh,
Okay.
I'm sorry. I was going to go ahead. Yeah. I say no. What Rose said spurred a memory and experience of mine, and even Tabitha. Um, when I was in quality improvement, you are constantly looking at data and essentially trying to meet, national standards and measures. And you have to ask people to change their behaviors, essentially. Things that, are their skills and things that they are working on, they've gone to school to learn how to do. And I remember having to stand up at a standing meeting for surgeons that we used to go to for some measures that had to do with, the operative section, and deliver news and ask them to change their behavior, essentially tell them what they were doing was wrong. And there's a lot of eggs, there's a lot of tomatoes being thrown. But one thing it really taught me was how to deliver bad news, effectively, and kind of build that skin up to be able to do that, and how to do it with tact. like what Tabitha was saying, meet someone where they are and use their own language. But once I had that experience, it started becoming easier, and I started feeling more authentic about having to have those conversations. So
Yeah, it's that's a great learning journey, Wendy. I respect that a lot. I think that's been a difficult path for me. I was never very assertive when I was in basic nursing, and I had to learn to speak, to share when people needed a different direction and had to, certainly being a VP, I had a lot of opportunities to do that. But I think the professional background of nursing does help. We learn how to deal with patient care and all kinds of patients, and so that helps to take that forward into the work, beyond the basic nursing roles. And I think there's always in your mind, you don't want to jeopardize the relationship. So it's important to have empathy for that person and speak in a way that's not going to alienate them, but yet get your point across. So my learning curve has been more being more assertive and saying things in a way that people can hear them, but also being clear on what the expectations are.
Great, thank you. Hopefully that answered your question, Kirsten. Seeing if there's other questions on here. Oh, I do have a question. Can we talk about imposter syndrome and comments around that? Especially because you all have such extensive careers in healthcare IT. One would assume that none of you have imposter syndrome. um, but I thought it's a topic that I've always that's always been in the back of my mind. So I thought I'm sure someone else will be curious about that too.
I'm happy to take the first stab at that. And, I was asked this before, but first off, there's nobody who thinks they've got it all at all times. If I met them, maybe might have had other perspectives, but it really, every person in parts of their career, their life, wonders if they really got this. Does everybody else around me have it and I don't? So it is a part of our reality. You will wonder if you are good enough, and every single other person around you has that same feeling at certain points in their life. And I would say if you go to the most successful, the most polished, the person who speaks perfectly and looks perfect and seems to walk in and have every fact at the top of their mind, they have had that same exact feeling. I think one thing that will help is talk about it. People don't want to say, oh, I don't know if I'm good enough for this out loud because they're afraid they'll be judged. And yet every person has that same feeling. It's like the person who says, can I ask a dumb question? And there's nobody else would ask it, but 20 other people in the room had the same question. So you're not alone, and that shouldn't stop you from taking that risk or that next step. You can do it. Don't let those doubts eat at you. Hand it over.
Interesting point there, Tabitha. Again, coming from a different country, I'm one of a handful of immigrant physicians who actually don't have a physician career here clinically. That's in my role. Like, so yes, I do have those moments of imposter syndrome. But then how I ground myself is I never forget why I'm here. I never forget my purpose, because any one of us can literally just jump ship and say, hey, you know what, on to the next adventure. But why did I take this position? Why am I here? And when you remember why you're here, is when you look back and go, I'm not competing with anybody else. I am running my own race. And lately, I've taken a role of mentoring teenagers. And it's just fascinating with this new generation that the emphasis is trying to be the best versions of themselves and not competing with other people, because the school educational system has trained us to compete with each other and get all of those, full ride scholarships and all that. But in the process has also created a lot of anxious kids. And so when I talk to teenagers, male or female, I really am fascinated at how these kids are very open-minded. They share, what they think, what they feel openly, because I am not related to them, so they can say anything they want, right? But it also is nice to hear that, you know what, how come these kids can actually talk to me this way, but my team is so fearful to talk to me this way, right? So, to your point, Tabitha, all of us suffer a certain degree of doubt because as we were trained, as we were growing up, someone put that doubt in our minds. And so, the trick is really how to tune that piece out and really ground yourself by asking yourself, why am I here?
Yeah, I agree that each of us has probably felt that at some point in our careers. I certainly have. Was introduced to integrating the healthcare enterprise, walked in a room, it was all males, many of them from with accents, languages, different languages, and all had their laptops open and, hardcore IT folks. And for me to come into that environment and try and succeed and even lead was quite challenging. What I've found though is that again, nursing is an incredible foundation. I mean, you have instant credibility when you say that you are a nurse and you have walked the linoleum, you know patient care, you've had patients' lives in your hands. That's very powerful. So in my experience, I would fall back on that and say, yes, I've, been there, done that, and I can apply that in this other way and be okay.
Thank you. Did you go, Wendy? I think you did.
Sorry. No, it's imposter syndrome. Very,
Yeah.
very real. A thing that we do in our head, a story we tell ourselves, not a real story. And I've heard I've seen the quote, we worry so much about other people, feeling like we need to compete or that we're not measuring up, which makes us obsess about the things that, we may not, where we fall short and don't like about ourselves. But I love the quote of, what would it be like if we obsessed about all the things we love about ourselves? And I think if you look at it that way, you'll start finding some of those things and starting finding some of that confidence.
Yes. And I think that's one of the benefits of networking is at least in my experience is that when I talk to other people, they're able to give me a different perspective from what they see outside, right? Like I only know what I know. I can see from what I saw, so I'll see the bad things maybe. But when I talk to other people and network with other people, especially ones in the healthcare IT industry, it's easier for them to say, "Hey, you're good at this, this, and this," and it helps you feel better about yourself. So it's always good to have a good support system, a good network system. So we have 15 minutes left. I don't see any other questions. So I'm going to go back and present my screen here. Do you guys have any other closing remarks or anything you wanted to share before I move on to the next slide?
I would just say informatics and nursing informatics specifically is an amazing career and provides so many different opportunities and ways of doing it. Just hearing the panelists' backgrounds and roles and medical informatics, of course, as well. So um, I'm excited for you to see where you can take it next. There's a lot of opportunity now with new technology, so jump in and make it happen. And I get to sit back and watch.
Yes, and that's why our chapter is here. We're doing events like this just so we can open the opportunities for folks who are trying to transition into healthcare IT, especially for students. So we have our student engagement committee, so they're helping along with that. Okay, so I'm going to share my window. And we started our, oh, let me see if I can just, hopefully you can see it. We started our presentation with this slide, and let's try to guess whose video or sorry movie is which. So let's go with Wonderlust. If you want to participate, you can go ahead and put in the chat who you think Wonderlust was. So it looks like Kathy thinks Rose was Wonderlust. Any other guesses? I'll wait a couple more seconds. How about the panelists? Do you guys know?
I would guess Wendy.
Wendy. Okay, let's see. It's Wendy. And do you want to explain why you picked this one, Wendy?
Yes. Um, Wanderlust is the definition of it is the excitement of traveling, going on trips and journeys. And I really feel like my career has been a lot of travel, and I'm naturally adventurous. So I've really stepped out and tried to do a lot of things that I haven't tried before in roles and positions and in different paths, because I really want to continuously learn and continuously grow, and also, you know, stay engaged, and have ultimately wanted to move into leadership. But you know, I'm at a point in my career. We're talking about different points. I'm also moving to a point where I'm ready to get one destination.
You'll notice that I see the theme. It was funny when you guys are submitting this to me. I'm like, it's all about travel journey. Okay. So the one on the right, the Walt Disney one, The Incredible Journey. Who do we think that one was? Any of the participants or panelists want to guess? Oh, Rose. Someone picked Rose again. Chris picked Rose.
Hmm.
All right, let's see. It's Joyce.
Joyce?
I was gonna say Joyce.
Yeah.
Why did you pick that one, Joyce?
Because when I started my career in nursing, I never imagined where I would be today. And, you know, I did have a lot of travel. I've been around the globe, had so many amazing experiences, and to have those humble beginnings and to be able to look back on that, it has been an incredible ride.
All right. How about the next one? The never ending journey. No taker. Oh, Tabitha, Chris, Tabitha. Oh, let's see. Ta-da! You guys are right. Cool. And did you want to comment a little bit about this one?
I think,
Tabitha?
you know, some similar themes. I mean, I love travel. I love, you know, learning. Um, it's more, it's not a, oh my gosh, this is never ending. It's more that there is always more. There's more to learn. There's more to contribute. And I don't think you get to a point, I hope, where you're just like, I've learned everything I need to learn.
Cool. And then last but not least, it's Rose.
Yay!
And you picked this.
Oh well,
Why?
if we anyone who watched the movie, it's really a story of survival, determination, and persistence. You know, really, to me, it's like you should not let your past define what you are going to be tomorrow. And there's a quote in that movie that I love about Chris Gardner when he said, "If you want something, go get it. Period. No ifs, no buts. Just go get it." So I encourage everyone to go get it. It's right within your reach. You just don't know it, but it's right there.
Yes, be brave. All right. So I think that's it. I don't see any other questions that came in. So again, I sincerely want to thank Joyce, Wendy, Rose, Tabitha so much for taking the time to prepare and be present for this presentation and event. We learned a lot, and we're recording this, so whoever couldn't make it, I'll make sure to share the link with everyone. For our attendees, if you have time, please fill out the survey. We really appreciate it because it gives us information on what other topics to cover in our upcoming events.
Hey, Joanna.
Mhm.
Heather
Yes.
posted something on the Q&A.
Okay, let's see. Let me just do this feedback form. Q&A. Yes, Heather, hold on. So she says, I've always had a fascination with data and analytics, but I've transitioned from an ICU RN into nursing staffing methodology, recruitment and retention, workforce succession planning. Her question is, do you have advice or guidance for a learning path for someone like myself who's newly moving into a nursing informatics role, but specifically nursing healthcare workforce related, not clinical data? So I'm not sure. I guess the question is, how do you get started in something like nursing informatics? But nursing informatics, I feel is such a broad area, so you kind of have to decide exactly where you want to drill down to in terms of career path. And correct me if I'm wrong.
I would say, from a data and analytics perspective, having that kind of background is really unique and beneficial and really golden to go in to nursing informatics and having that background now. Especially, it sounds like the question came from someone who is doing work in the nursing workforce now. We need so much analysis. We need so much assessment and evaluation right now in what is happening with nursing. And as Joyce and I have talked about the Big Data Science Initiative, we encourage nurses to be data scientists, to be data stewards. So when I hear about nurse informaticists coming in with a already technical analytics engineering background, I know you have that, Joanna, I'm always really impressed, and I say you might really be ahead of the game, and you've got great potential, so much to do.
Great. So Heather, hopefully that answered your question. I'm putting the Nurse Evolution website in your chat. So hopefully you can follow up. I'm sure Wendy won't mind if you reach out to her on LinkedIn. Okay. Any other questions? Let's see. Something else came in chat. No, that was it. Okay. So thank you again, everyone, for joining.
There's one more question.
Oh, there is? Yeah, go ahead.
From Annie.
Okay. I didn't see it. Go ahead.
From Annie, it says, for those of us who don't have strong analytical backgrounds, do you have recommendations for boot camps?
Is this a question about getting experience in the analytical side and are you asking if you want to take, oh, I see. I can't answer that. I don't know.
I think I can just address that really quick. I think that's absolutely a fantastic way to go. There's so many places that offer boot camps, and to have that skill set, even to be able to step outside of nursing and healthcare and go into a different kind of industry perspective, I think you can bring a lot back to healthcare. If you want to learn how to code, if you want to learn data science, I think it's a great perspective to have. And if, again, we'll put it out there, if you're interested in the initiative, Nursing Knowledge Big Data Science Initiative, It's really fantastic. It's a great way to learn about nursing data science, and really a lot of ways where you can use data and in multifaceted areas for nursing.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And the first day of the conferences are workshops, and they're often about analytics. So take a look at that. It's on the University of Minnesota Nursing School website.
Awesome. Annie, did that answer your question? And are there any other questions? Nope, I don't see any. Okay. So again, thank you everyone for attending. Thank you to our speakers. Again, I'm recording this, so this will go onto YouTube, and we'll send out a link to everyone so you can share it. And if you have time, please fill out our survey. I put the link in our chat, and also we do have upcoming online events. Eventually this year, maybe later this year, we'll have in-person events. But we have one on the 12th and 2 in June. So if you're interested in joining those, you can register in this link on our site. So with that, I will end the event. And again, thank you for joining and have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.